pep talk time. Welcome to Kyera in My Pocket, where personal transformation gets intimate, raw, and uncensored. So do not say that I didn't warn you. I'm Kyera Kacey, founder of Liberate Her, an international best-selling author of Rich Bitch Money Goals, Becoming the Energetic Match to Wealth. I have coached thousands of women around the world using our 9 iconic rich bitch principles to change their lives, their businesses, and their bank accounts. So get ready for unfiltered stories, TMI moments, and the exact mindset and embodiment shifts that have helped me build a multi-7-figure empire. I am here to help you on your path to personal and professional success. So tune in, turn up, and let's fucking go. I got a pocket full of Kyera. Whoa. I couldn't help myself. Let's go. Okay, I am very excited to have this conversation today about publishing or self-publishing your book. I have had a lot of requests to discuss the process of writing a book and how do you go about doing that. And first of all, I feel like every single person has a story in them. So you might not know this about me. So if you know, this is the book Rich Bitch Money Goals that I received a publishing deal for, and that happened November of 2024. However, my very first book that I self-published was She Dares, Overcome Heartbreak, Conquer Fear, and Turn Pain into Purpose. Now, if you try to go find this on Amazon, it's not available. I've taken it down. It is so poorly written that I couldn't keep it up. It is something that I want to redo. And at some point, I will do that. There's a lot of projects in the works. However, let's talk about you and writing your book. It's really interesting because we all know that AI is kind of taking storm. Everybody's using it. It's not a bad thing, but I think it is a bad thing when it's completely replacing your voice. And like you could literally have AI write you a book in minutes. You could have an entire book in minutes. It's never, ever going to be the same as your own voice, your own energy. So I will use AI, but the only thing I will use AI for is like grammatical stuff. So I write all of my own content, all of my own posts. And sometimes I don't use it all the time, but sometimes I'll say like fix any, grammatical errors. But I'm seeing so many people now, like it's like they're not even writing their content. It's so fucking obvious. Like it's so bad. It's so bad because I'm looking at it and I'm like, God, I can't even feel you. I can't feel you in this post because it's not your energy. So it's just, anyway, it's wild. I don't know where we're going off on that, but She Dares was my first book. I wrote that in 2016. And one of the questions that I got about writing a book was how and why did you start? And I think this is the biggest obstacle for people. And I'll tell you, the person who really inspired me to write my first book was his name is Steve Lato. Steve is a good friend of mine. He has a very, very popular YouTube channel. I highly recommend you go check him out. But he is a very successful published author. And Steve is somebody that I would go to just a lot in life with certain questions, whether it was writing or what do you think of the title? Like Steve has been such a massive support and influence in my life. And so I'm just super grateful for him. But a lot of people don't know, one of the very first things I did, so when I wrote She Dares, what the reason that this book came forward was because I went through something incredibly dramatic and traumatic in 2016. So in 2016, that's when I went through my very first divorce. I came home from work to the FBI and the state police having raided my home, asking if my, at the time, husband and I were connected to the Russian mafia. And the long story short is that my life was turned upside down in the blink of a fucking eye. And I felt like I had no voice. There was things that were happening that the outside world saw because my ex-husband ended up on the news. He went to jail and I was silently suffering. There were so many things that I just felt nobody could understand me. Nobody knew the truth of what was actually happening behind closed doors. And prior to that, like I had already overcome so much in my life so much trauma that when I went through this divorce and I found myself paralyzed, I was like, my God, when I overcome this, I need to tell this story. And so that's actually where She Dares originated from. It was the overcoming of something really fucking challenging. And so I wanted to share my story. One, for myself, it was therapeutic, but most importantly, I wanted to impact other women to let them know what was possible despite any circumstances they were going through. And so one of the things that I did, so my dream was to get a publishing deal at the time, but that didn't happen for me. But here's what I did. I took so think about that, by the way. 2016, I self-published. I also self-published something called She Without He. I have also pulled that down because that's something I want to redo. That's for the woman who is going through divorce or an affair. And so in 2016, I self-published. In 2024, I got my first publishing deal. So I want you to just I'm saying that because there might be someone listening right now and you're like, I really want a publishing deal. And I'm always going to tell you to take messy action. I'm going to tell you to start. I'm going to tell you to put things out there. Again, She Dares has been pulled because it's just not good. It was good at the time and it was the best I could bring forward, but after years of experience, your writing evolves, things evolve, but that doesn't mean that you wait until something is quote unquote perfect. So, I started because I had a story to tell and I wanted to impact people. That was the point behind She Dares. So, I took this book that was in my room and I took white construction paper and I put this white construction paper, I taped it, I like made a white book cover. And then I took a black Sharpie and I wrote Kyra Kacey, best-selling author. I didn't have a title because I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I just would look at it. So I would look at this book that was outlined with white construction paper where all I could see was a book and my name, best-selling author. So Rich Bitch Money Goals did become an international best-selling author, which I'm super proud of. And but notice how that took some time. But you'll also notice how in between I was still moving and doing a lot of things. And so my process for writing, this is something that I feel trips so many people up. Just fucking write. I know it sounds like so basic, but we overcomplicate so much. And when people start to overcomplicate, or they're like, I need to take a writing class, I need to enroll in this writing course. It's like, no, just write. So here's what I did because part of me started overthinking this process like quite a bit in the very beginning. So I decided to take I had like several significant stories in my life and I just decided that I was going to start writing. And what I ended up doing was I had all of these different stories and these different timelines that were finally written out. And then I started to piece them together in order. So rather than go, okay, let me start here, day one, it's like that the moment that you start to feel like paralyzed, you can't move, your creative juices have stopped, you got to switch it up. One of the things I actually did for Rich Bitch Money Goals was so first of all, this is the second edition of Rich Bitch Money Goals. The first version I did not have a publishing deal for that. I also wasn't looking for one. But the very first version of Rich Bitch Money Goals, I would sometimes go for walks and I would take my phone, I would open up the notes section, or I would open up, like I had a Google Drive. And so I would open up a chapter, for example. And if I knew something needed to be elevated or I wasn't done working on it, I would walk, I would read a sentence, and then I would just walk and I would go, what do I want to add to this? And so I wasn't always sitting down at my desk just writing. Sometimes I was actually in motion. There were other times where I would take out, my voice notes and I would leave voice notes of what I wanted to have, added to a certain chapter or things like that. So I had to get creative. And I think it's really important that you know yourself enough to go, I need to not be sitting down at a desk overthinking this, feeling like I'm in a cage inside. Like maybe you need to go outside. You don't have to follow the rules. When it comes to writing, you have to remember that this is about you bringing life to paper. And you shouldn't be doing that in a state of boredom or feeling pressure or uncertainty. It should come from excitement. It should come from flow. It should come from movement that doesn't feel like it's forced. So that is something I would say. I think find your own unique process. I guarantee you are overthinking it. I guarantee you are making this way more complicated than it needs to be. And I would say the other thing in terms of like my process of writing, this was a big one. I'll keep this for the first book because it actually only applied to the first one, which again, that was She Dares. But when I was writing She Dares, I was really naive. I had no idea what kind of effort and time and resources went into writing a book. So, for my very first book, when it came time for me to go, okay, I need an editor, I need a book cover. I actually created the book cover for She Dares on my own. I went and had a photo shoot done for this picture, but everything else for that book cover, I actually did myself. And I actually love it. I'm really proud of that, but I didn't know what was going to be required. And at that time in my life in 2016, I was not in the financial position that I have created for myself today. So I was struggling to pay my mortgage. I was struggling to buy groceries. Filling my tank with gas was stressful for me. And so I didn't have the money to hire an editor. I didn't have the money to hire somebody to actually create the interior layout. Like, the writing a book is a process. And so what I did was I started selling furniture in my home. I sold jewelry. I sold things that I said to myself, there's going to be a day where I can buy all of this back. And there's going to be a day where I will be in a completely different financial situation. That can change. I can buy another couch. But if I don't bring this book to life, it just never comes to life. It never exists. Like, you can't buy a dream back that you never brought to life in the first place. And so for me, I was really resourceful and I was willing to do the things that were required to really make this happen. And I think when it comes to writing a book, listen, so many people want to do it. It's like point something 1% that actually do. I'm going to ask my publisher the stats on that. We'll do a part 2 for this, and I'm going to dive into more questions, but like, most people don't ever actually get to the point of publishing or self-publishing. And so my biggest piece of advice, if you want to write a book, you have a story to tell, it should be something that is a soul purpose, a soul calling. It should, like, you rarely, unless you're JK Rowling and you're like, you have a Harry Potter series and it takes off, or like Twilight. Writing a book is not necessarily about the money you make from sales. And can you make money from writing a book? Fuck yeah. But it's usually the opportunities, the speaking engagements, the other things that come from you writing a book that bring in more money. So my thing is, like, if you're writing a book just because you want to make money, I would find something else to do. Because for me, making money was not even, like, that wasn't even in the forefront of my mind when I wanted to write this book. I just wanted to make a difference. So let's leave this for part 1. Let's do a part 2 for writing your book. This podcast was brought to you by my international best-selling book, Rich Bitch Money Goals, Becoming the Energetic Match to Wealth, which is available at over 39,000 retailers across the nation. So make sure you pick up your copy today. You can find it in places like Amazon, Target, Indigo, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, and more.